Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today for Does This Course Spark Joy? My name is Mark Cooper, and joining me on the call today is Randall. And today we're going to talk about where KonMari Method meets the ISU Canvas transition. So as you prepare to move your course to Canvas, think of your content as like a moving box. Only the most meaningful activities, assignments, and quiz questions deserve a place in that moving box. Otherwise, things might get donated or thrown away. In this session, we'll explore how to identify the essential course materials while letting go of content that no longer serves you or your students. So today, you will learn strategies for organizing your keep pile, archiving resources for future use, and streamlining your course for more effective learning. So let's make the Canvas transition intentional, efficient, and student-centered. So we'll talk about sparking joy by evaluating your content, keep pile, and things to let go of. So starting with evaluating your content, some guiding questions that can help you while you are deciding what to keep, what to throw away are, does this align with the course objectives? So you want to make sure that your content aligns with the course objectives. If it doesn't, then you want to go ahead and get rid of it. Does this promote meaningful engagement or assessment? Is the content still relevant and up to date? And how easily can this activity be recreated in Canvas? So not all activities have a one-to-one Moodle to Canvas conversion. So you want to be mindful of that and seek other alternatives. And that's why it's good to start early. So we'll talk about what to keep as you are going through and considering your content in Moodle before you import it over to Canvas. So first of all, you want to clean up the content in Moodle. And you can do this by structuring your modules for clarity, taking a look at the accessibility of the content. And for that, we have the Accessibility Plus Toolkit, which can actually correct accessibility issues that you might have within your course content. You also want to utilize file storage options. We have a variety of different options for storing your files. You could do Moodle backups of your Moodle course. You can consider moving your text content over to a Google Doc and storing them there. We have Panopto, which is a video storage, video management system where you should upload your videos. I think we've talked about that in a number of webinars where you should download your videos from Moodle and then upload those to Panopto. You also want to consider Google Drive or Box for file organization. And Google Drive and our loss of storage was the reason that prompted us to go to Panopto in the first place. But you want to just consider what you're keeping in your Google Drive. You also have Box. Instructors in the health sciences will know that Box is HIPAA compliant, whereas Google Drive is not. Some other things to consider while keeping for your keep pile, to know that Moodle will still be available. So you don't need to move everything to Canvas to retain access. You'll have access to your Moodle course for up to 2 years after the conversion in the fall of 2025. Consider local storage. So think about where you could store things like your course downloads onto your computers, like a hard drive or a USB, taking it old school. Some other best practices to consider are, as you are moving your files, think about the naming too. So you might not have been intentional in naming your files early when you were developing your courses, but this is a great opportunity to come up with some sort of naming convention and to be consistent across all storage locations. So those are just some ways of organizing your keep pile. Up next, Ryan is going to talk about what to let go.
Thanks, Mark. So I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the KonMari, with Marie Kondo's idea, but one of the things that she suggests is, in addition to the things that you want to keep, you also organize things that you're going to plan to let go of. So for our purposes, extending that metaphor to the Canvas transition, these would be things that don't currently serve your purposes. They don't currently speak to what your students need. to what you know as the instructor you want to provide them, but they might still have phrasings or they might still have approaches that you do want to not have to invent again from scratch. So you're attached to some aspect of it, but you know it's not worth actually keeping operational in the learning management itself. So what I'd suggest you do is have two different piles. The first one of these, you can name it a maybe pile. So it's a maybe folder somewhere where you can keep all of these things. And these would include activities, prompts, or questions that you might possibly eventually use or you like some aspect of. But as I said, you don't want to have every single activity or prompt that you've ever used, because when you bring things into Canvas, it has a much more flat file structure. And so the fewer things that you bring over, the less clutter you're going to encounter on the Canvas side. So if you see something in Moodle that you know you're not currently going to be attached to and really want to bring over, as Mark was saying, you can put them into Word documents, you can put them into Google documents, you can put them in other places that you can still pick the best parts out of without actually having it in the LMS itself. And when I say LMS, I mean Learning Management System, so Moodle or Canvas. And these things, I'd argue, if it's just your maybe pile, these are actually to be more maintainable for you outside of Canvas, because they're more things that you've realized aren't still suited to putting in front of your students immediately, but you might still want to copy and paste the way that you phrased a question once. So what you could do is put those into a set of folders. Some people organize these chronologically, so by semester, then with the different courses you've taught underneath there. Other people might do it more conceptually, so by course, and then with the chronological order within each course. Either way, whichever one suits the way that you think about your courses. But the key idea is keeping it outside of Canvas, so you're not tripping over it continually, even though you know that you're not actually using it. And either approach that you decide to take for managing those files outside of Canvas, what I'd recommend, in addition to that sort of file structure organization, is actually at the top of that file. If you have a file where you've just copied and pasted a bunch of your old activities or a bunch of old prompts or questions, put a date at the top of that so you know when the last time it was that you looked at those, and then actually set yourself a plan to revisit it periodically. So perhaps next semester, perhaps after 2 years, whatever suits you and how frequently you teach a particular course. But being able to think and reflect on what you've done and see whether or not anything in that maybe pile is still worth keeping. Maybe it is an excellent thing to bring in and you'll be very glad that you kept it in that maybe pile. Or maybe you realize after a couple of years, you can actually just put it into your thank you pile, which is what I would call the things that you probably might think of as just the recycling bin or just getting rid of. But some of us have a very hard time getting rid of things. So if you're one of those folks who just really has a hard time getting rid of things, and you know that outside of Google Drive, your own local storage might have a lot of capacity. So you're not losing a ton by keeping some old files around, as long as you can clearly differentiate between the ones you're currently using and the ones that are just in these maybe or thank you files. If you're one of those people, it's great. Go ahead and acknowledge your feelings that you as an instructor care about the things that you have written for your students. They worked well at some point. Maybe they don't at the moment though. So acknowledge that sort of human side of teaching. And if you feel comfortable doing so, you can thank those things. That's what Marie Kondo suggests. If you're getting rid of like an old jacket, doesn't fit you anymore, but you still have such fond memories of when you went traveling through Europe with this jacket, take a photo of it. That's what she'd suggest for physical items. For these items that are in your course, you can thank them, then put them in the recycling bin, actually get rid of them, or just let yourself know that yes, these served a purpose once upon a time, but you don't still need them. And the important idea here is if you do want to keep this sort of thank you pile, keep it separate from the things that you might still actually find useful. So the maybes are the potentially useful, and the thank yous are, this was useful at one point, but now I might as well just delete it, but I've got enough storage on my computer that I don't have to. Make sure you can keep them separate. And I'd still recommend putting a date at the top of those so you can know when you last evaluated them if you do decide to let them linger on. So if you want to learn more, you're welcome to read our Tiger Tracks articles, which are step-by-step guides to many of the things you can do in the different learning management systems. And we also have a Wednesday webinar video library of sessions just like this one. We strip out the question and answer session and then make them available so that you can learn from these whenever you have time to do so. We'll be doing these Wednesday webinars throughout the remainder of spring semester, and you can see the schedule with the third of these links for the rest of spring 2025. The best way to get in touch with us is to send an email to all of us at once in the ITRC. So that email address is itrc@isu.edu. You can also give us a phone call. 208-282-5880 is our number. And for people in Pocatello, you can go to the Oboler Library and then into the basement, room B17, to meet with any of us when you have just free time and realize you want to come on over. Or if you want to plan in advance, you can make an on-demand appointment. And these could be via Zoom, just on the phone, or they can also be in person. And finally, for future Wednesday webinars, just like this one, watch for the announcements in Idaho State Today. That newsletter will let you know what we're doing each week. And you can also look at the ISU Canvas transition website for all the latest news about the Canvas transition. If you haven't already bookmarked that one, I highly recommend that you do. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you for all your questions.